Hey friends, welcome back to Figuring It Out. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Rachel. Yes, I'm a life coach, but this isn't one of those podcasts where I pretend I've got life all figured out. This is where we have real conversations about life, self trust, overthinking, and, well, figuring it out. So, here's something that I've been thinking about this week. Everybody knows what to do when life is falling apart. When there's a crisis, your brain immediately knows where your attention needs to belong. You lose your job, find another one. You get hit with an unexpected bill, figure out how you're going to pay the bill. Somebody gets sick, everything else gets put on hold. When there's a fire, the fire decides your priorities. But nobody really talks about what happens when nothing's on fire. Now, when I say that, I don't mean life is perfect. Life is never perfect. Little things happen. I just mean there isn't one giant crisis consuming all of your energy. So, like, what then? What do you do then? And this question has kind of come from my own life. Well, not kind of, it did. A few years ago, I decided to move across the country. I already worked a remote job, so I took 5 days off to move. I started back to work on December 16th. 2 weeks later, December 30th, they let me go. Last business day of the year. My health insurance ended the very next day. And I remember thinking, fuck, that was not part of this plan. So for the next 6 months, my job was finding a job. That is where all my energy went. Not personal growth, not self-awareness, not trying to figure myself out. I was purely in survival mode. Now, yes, eventually I found work. It was a contract position and I was incredibly grateful. But I still didn't have the stability I was looking for. Like, I loved my job. And so I really wanted to become a permanent employee. Thank God I did. So I had health insurance from day one, and I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I can finally go to the doctor. And that probably sounds like such a random thing to remember and be grateful for. But it really wasn't about the doctor. It was about what it represented. For the first time in a while, I wasn't waking up wondering what the next emergency was going to be. Here's what surprised me. I thought once life settled down, I'd automatically know what to do next. I didn't. I actually felt a little lost because for years, life had been choosing my priorities for me. There was always another problem, another deadline, another bill, another fire. I never had to ask myself what deserved my attention because life answered that question for me on a daily basis. Then one day, it didn't. And I remember thinking, like, okay, now what? What's coming? And nobody really talks about that part. Everybody talks about getting out of survival mode. Nobody talks about what happens after. And looking back, I can honestly tell you, I don't think I knew how to function without chaos. And that's very weird to admit because if you'd have asked me back then, I would have told you I hated drama. And I did. But my brain trusted chaos more than it trusted calm. So since chaos was familiar and calm wasn't, sometimes I'd overthink something that didn't need to be overthought. I'd convince myself something was wrong when really nothing was. I wasn't trying to create drama. I just didn't know what to do with a life that wasn't being driven by the next emergency. And I have a feeling I'm not the only one. You'll hear people say, go back to who you were before the world told you who to be. And if that resonates with you, I think that's wonderful. It just does not resonate with me and for me. See, I don't remember parts of my childhood, a lot of my childhood, for that advice to mean much to me. Things happened when I was pretty young, and I honestly don't know who I would have been if life had looked different than what it was. So I wasn't trying to go back. I wasn't trying to become somebody else. I was just trying to pay attention. What do I actually enjoy? What drains me? What do I believe because I truly believe it? And what do I believe simply because I've never stopped to question it? Every once in a while, I'd catch myself thinking, I don't know that I actually believe that anymore. Or, hmm, I don't think I even want that anymore. And that's okay. I mean, I've talked about this before on the podcast because I think it's so important. So I'm just going to keep saying it. You're allowed to change your mind. Changing your mind doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you paid attention long enough to realize you've changed. So if you're listening to this and life has suddenly, finally started to settle down just a bit, maybe don't put pressure on yourself to have all the answers or know what you're supposed to be doing right this minute or tomorrow. Maybe this season isn't about fixing yourself. Maybe it isn't about reinventing yourself. Maybe it's simply about paying attention. Maybe you remember you've always wanted to paint, so you buy some paint. Maybe you always wanted to write, so you start writing. Shameless plug. I did, so if you'd like to read some of mine, come find me over on Substack. Anyway, but you get the idea here. Maybe you realize you actually love being outside, and so you start going on a walk for 15 minutes. The point here is maybe you just start trying to completely do something new. Just ask yourself, what do I think? Not what does everybody else think or what did I used to think. It's really is going to start with just not pretending to be somebody you're not by trying to become some perfect version of yourself, but by paying attention enough that you stop ignoring yourself. And that line has been on my mind a lot lately. I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm trying to stop ignoring myself. And honestly, right now, I think that's enough. I hope that's enough for you. Well, that's all I got for you today. So, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If this episode resonated with you, send it to someone who's finally reached a season where they get to ask themselves questions, kind of like, what do I actually want? And if you'd like a little more of these conversations during the week, come find me over on Substack. I'd love to have you there. I'll see you next time as we keep figuring it out.